And in Colorado right now, mudslides and flash flooding could be a problem for more than a week.
I'm Nicole Burley. It is Thursday, July 22nd. This is Rush Hour. Well, thanks for joining us tonight. Here is what's happening in your nation right now. Delta variant cases on the rise from coast to coast. Could mask mandates be on their way back? And how do those mandates impact business owners? We are live in New York with both sides of that story. And the DOJ launching gun violence task forces all across the country just hours after multiple mass shootings injured more than a dozen people in Chicago. And then in Ohio, we have some new details about a teenager's death at a theme park there, why it took 30 minutes to pull her from the water. But we begin with those ongoing wildfires. It's an emergency on the West Coast. This brand new video just in shows firefighters surrounded by flames. This is from the Tamarack fire. It's now spread from Northern California into Nevada. It is one of nearly 80 large fires currently burning across the country. And tonight there is a warning about the air, and it's because of those western wildfires. They're not just affecting one side of the country, now really a problem for all of us. That smoke blanketing the majority of the nation. Our team of journalists across the country are covering this story. Let's start with Adam Snyder. He's from our Oklahoma City station, KFOR.
Yeah, we're out here in Oklahoma City where smoky conditions continue. All of this due to wildfires out in the western part of the United States. Now, health officials are warning those who may be sensitive to these conditions to continue avoiding the outdoors.
I'm Annie Satowski in Charlotte, North Carolina, where we have another hazy and smoky day on tap due to those wildfires burning out west and in central Canada. Climatologists say that certainly more rain and wind would help clear up all that smoke, but we don't have too much of that in our forecast. Even so, they do expect these hazy conditions to start moving out before the weekend.
If you take a step outside, it's clear how unclear the skies are here in Kansas. Now that smoke is expected to stick around for a few days, maybe even a couple weeks here in Kansas. And they also advise making sure those windows stay shut in the meantime. For News Nation, I'm Hunter Funk.
I'm Stephanie Harris in Portsmouth, Virginia, where the skies have cleared and the air quality is good once again. But we're not out of the woods just yet as those wildfires continue to burn in central Canada. The smoke could be back in a few days.
All right, well, let's get to Albert Ramon in the Weather Center. Albert, any idea how long this smoke will stick around? We heard him just say right there, you know, the skies are clearing, but they're not out of the woods yet.
No, and the weather pattern, the jet stream is going to continue to transport the smoke from west to east. And actually, I think between now and the next 24 hours, we may see the smoke spread in areas that aren't dealing with the smoke right now. So you showed this at the top of the broadcast where the current smoke is, and it covers every single state in the lower 48 with the exception of Florida. But again, that may change for tomorrow. Here's a look at the air quality forecast. Anytime on this map you see yellows or reds pop up, that's where you have the reduced air quality. And notice Midwest and parts of the Southeast dealing with reduced air quality, but the worst of it around the Tamarack fire, the Dixie fire, as well as the Bootleg fire. And it's not just smoke reducing visibility and also reducing air quality, but dust from the Sahara Desert. The trade winds bring it into the Gulf of Mexico, into Florida now. A nice plume of dust expected in Texas for tomorrow, Nicole.
All right, Albert, thank you. Well, more top stories now. This is out of Chicago, New York, and D.C. We start with the fresh fight over mask mandates as Delta variant cases climb. Allison Harris live at the White House. So, Allison, what is the administration saying tonight?
Well, Nicole, not having to wear a mask is a major perk to those who are vaccinated. It's been a major selling point of the vaccination effort. Now there are questions as to whether that's going to change with the Delta variant surging, making up more than 80% of cases across the country. And now there is a new variant. It is the Lambda variant. It's been detected in a Houston, Texas hospital. The White House today not confirming whether its own officials have been a part of some early conversations, early talks about possibly changing mask guidelines or recommendations recommending that mask mandates be reinstated. The president's spokeswoman only saying that the White House is, quote, engaged with public health experts, maintaining the status quo on this, that people who are not vaccinated must continue to wear masks and that those who are vaccinated only have to wear them as a personal choice. To be clear, there's no proactive guidance at this time from the CDC that people who are fully vaccinated need to be wearing masks except in public transit places. The president just talked about this, talking about what those health experts are considering.
And what they're doing is they're going and they're investigating every aspect of any change that could or might take place. But the vaccines are good against all of the variants that are out there.
And there is another big question on the masks that remains, and that is whether children will need to wear them as they head back to school. That time of year is quickly approaching. The CDC says that anyone who is unvaccinated needs to wear a mask, and that includes children, because there is not vaccine emergency use authorization for anyone who is 11 and younger. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommending that students wear masks in schools, and the president said last night at a town hall that kids wearing masks is probably going to happen. The White House is leaving that up to local officials. Nicole?
Yeah, definitely. Lots of parents want to know about that. All right. And so, Allison, already getting some reaction from Republican leaders?
Yes, so this morning, the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, he said that that will not be happening in Florida. He says there will not be a mask mandate for students or their parents. He said, quote unquote, he's not going to muzzle students in his state. The president's spokeswoman responding to that today, saying she is a parent, and if she were a parent in Florida, she'd be greatly concerned about that.
Absolutely. All right, Allison, thank you. All right, let's go from Allison to Tom Negevin in D.C. Now, Tom, with COVID cases rising, mask mandates possibly returning, our business is starting to prepare for the worst.
They sure are. But here in New York City, Nicole, it's been a bit different throughout the post-lockdown period. We've had a lot of businesses here invoking their own mask mandates, if you will, telling people, patrons, if they don't want to wear a mask in their shop, to go and get their croissant somewhere else. They're pretty aggressive about it, quite frankly, pretty serious about it, in spite of the economic consequences, which today a lot of those businesses say they're feeling. But tonight, just looking around the streets of New York, we're seeing a lot more people walking around, out of doors even, with their masks in place, making the choice for themselves, not waiting for any further mask guidance in the wake of the Delta and now the Lambda variants, especially on New York City subways. You're seeing a lot of folks with the masks back on. Businesses here and around the country preparing, Nicole, for a return to mask protocols, given the number of cases we're seeing right now. On the other side of the country, restaurants in California today, in the Los Angeles area in particular, they survived COVID lockdowns, now closing because of the COVID pandemic's resurgence in terms of the Delta variant. Joining LA County and 16 other counties, mandates to wear masks indoors, whether you're vaccinated or not. Nationally, business owners and consumers are pretty rattled. So are the markets. Economists telling us this is a global issue, not just a national and local one. It's going to continue to be that way until the COVID numbers start coming back down. Add to that the weekly jobless numbers out today, showing that the number of Americans applying for new unemployment benefits has hit a 2-month high. In short, those Labor Department numbers showing that the economy is a long way from out of the woods. In fact, heading back into a darker corner of the woods, you might say, according to some of the experts, Nicole.
Lots of fears tonight. All right, Tom Negevin, thank you. Well, tonight, the Wuhan lab at the center of the COVID virus back in the spotlight. A senior Chinese health official said the country will not accept the World Health Organization's plan for the second phase of a study into the virus origin. So let's bring in News Nation's On Balance host, Leland Vittert. He's joining me here in the newsroom. All right, so Leland, strong words from that Chinese official.
Right, and very unsurprising. Nobody ever thought the Chinese were going to be open and transparent about this. They haven't from the very beginning. The vice minister of the Chinese National Health Commission said he was rather taken aback that the plan includes further investigation into the lab leak theory, even though the lab is in Wuhan, where the virus started. He dismissed the lab leak idea as a rumor that runs counter to common sense, he says, in science, saying it is impossible for us to accept such an origin tracing plan, going on to say the Wuhan lab has no virus that can directly infect humans. That sort of flies in the face of much of the evidence we have right now, including that the lab in Wuhan did gain-of-function research, meaning it studied how to make those viruses deadly just before the coronavirus outbreak. According to U.S. intelligence, 3 scientists from the lab were reportedly hospitalized with symptoms of the disease. That is one of the key pieces of evidence, Nicole, in what they call the lab leak theory.
All right, so Leland, what's the reaction been like to China's comments?
Well, the Biden administration, remember, has sort of moved in, and the president has said that he wants an investigation into this. The Biden administration released a statement criticizing China's reactions of the WHO's second phase, reading, quote, we are deeply disappointed. This is the United States talking, that the Chinese position is irresponsible and frankly dangerous, going on to say this is about saving lives in the future, and it's not time to be stonewalling. It's pretty clear the Chinese won't cooperate with WHO investigation, and their reaction is straight out of that old Soviet playbook: admit nothing, deny everything, and make counter accusations. You might remember, Nicole, just a couple of weeks ago when the lab leak theory sort of came back around, the Chinese started trying to blame the United States and say it could have come from one of our military labs.
All right, much more to come on this, I am sure. Leland, thank you. Well, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi moving forward with the January 6th commission without help from the Republicans. And this comes after she rejected 2 committee picks of House GOP leader Kevin McCarthy. News Nation's Joe Khalil live in D.C. So, Joe, another partisan divide. Why did she block those 2 lawmakers?
Well, she went into detail, Nicole, today, and it became pretty clear that leaders in the Republican Party and Democratic leaders, they are not going to come together and work in a bipartisan way on a January 6th investigation. We heard from Speaker Pelosi for the first time since she blocked those 2 members of Congress, Jim Jordan and Jim Banks. She didn't pull her punches. She explained exactly why. She said it's not so much that they voted against certifying legitimate election results back in January, but she says they both made public statements that not only downplayed what happened on January 6th, but that they blamed Democrats and even sometimes blamed the Biden administration for January 6th. The Biden administration was not even in office at that time. Here's maybe a more passionate part of her explanation today.
This is deadly serious. This is about our Constitution. It's about our country. It's about assault on the Capitol that is being mischaracterized for some reason at the expense of finding the truth for the American people.
All right, so Nicole, here's where we're left now. We have no one comprehensive investigation. We have a Democratic-led select committee looking into this. We've got Republicans saying they are going to do their own investigation. And then you got some hearings in the House, some hearings in the Senate, sort of a patchwork looking into January 6th. We actually asked Republican leader Kevin McCarthy today whether, given there's going to be no one authoritative look at January 6th, if he can honestly say that the public is going to get a real comprehensive understanding of what happened that day. He said he hopes so, but he did acknowledge to us that it's going to be a lot harder now. Nicole?
Well, Joe, okay, let's go back to the select committee, the one led by Speaker Pelosi. So any chance that she may add more Republicans?
So it is possible, and it's certainly within the rules for her to do that. There was talk of maybe an Adam Kinzinger on the Republican side being added in, but it's maybe not likely. She has already said that, look, the Democrats she has, plus Liz Cheney, they have enough to move forward, and they are ready to start working on their own. She said that more than once, so I would take her at her word, and we're probably going to see them start to work with the people they got right now.
All right, we'll take her at her word. All right, Joe, thank you. All right, Joe, live there in the Capitol. Let's give you a live look at the White House, where there have been demonstrations in solidarity with anti-government protests in Cuba. And today, President Biden responding. News Nation correspondent Brian Enton live in Miami. So, Brian, what is the administration doing?
Nicole, the Biden administration imposing new sanctions on Cuba, including on the defense minister himself. The Human Rights Watch group says that 500 protesters in Cuba have either been detained or gone missing since those mass protests we saw more than 1 week ago. You look on social media and you can see there are pictures of the missing there. There are actually family members holding up pictures of their loved ones, still looking for them, not sure where they are. We talked to one woman in Miami today, very, very concerned about her family back in Cuba. She says one of her loved ones was on a moped with a friend yesterday when all of a sudden 12 police officers pounced on them, demanding to know whether or not they were part of the protest. How scared are you for your family member that you spoke to that had that interaction with the police?
Immensely, because they can very easily come back and they're tracking everything that they watch, all the stuff that they talk about. So if she posts something regarding what's happening in Cuba, it's very easy for them to come knocking on the door and say, hey, let's go.
Okay, so the Biden administration imposing these new sanctions, but still no progress when it comes to Wi-Fi on the island. A lot of Florida leaders here want the Biden administration to sign off on these helium balloons that would be flown over Cuba so that they could bring Wi-Fi to the Cuban people. The Wi-Fi has been taken out by the government there. So far, President Biden has not signed off on that. Nicole?
All right, no solution on that. Brian, thank you. Well, 8 people are hurt after a shooter opened fire on a party bus last night in Chicago. And this has the Justice Department launching a strike force aimed at gun violence in 5 cities. Rudabeh Shabazi live tonight in Chicago. Rudabeh, you have more on that.
Nicole, this shooting last night was one of 3 mass shootings in Chicago in a span of 6 hours. In this particular incident, a party bus stopped at a gas station. It had about 40 people who got off the bus to go to the bathroom, get something to eat and drink, and an SUV, we're told by police, then pulled up and opened fire. 8 people were hurt. One of those people is in critical condition, and one of the shooting victims was just an innocent bystander who was there pumping gas, who was shot. So the irony of this is rich, as the Attorney General is in Chicago today. He is announcing the launch of these strike force teams. They'll be in 5 metropolitan areas. That's here in Chicago, Los Angeles, the San Francisco Bay Area, Washington, D.C., and New York. And the aim is to target the trafficking. There is no federal law against gun trafficking, so they have to use other statutes. So they're talking about ways to go after these so-called corridors and traffickers who get weapons into the hands of criminals.
Today, we're taking the opportunity to launch the 5 strike forces, which will battle illegal gun trafficking networks. This set of strike forces is just one part of our comprehensive anti-violent crime initiative, which we began in May. That initiative has 3 main foci. One is targeted enforcement. A second is building community trust, without which our law enforcement efforts will not succeed. And the third is providing funds for communities' anti-violent crime, particularly anti-gun prevention and violence intervention.
And Nicole, 2021 is on track to be the deadliest year in terms of gun violence in America in 2 decades. 54 Americans losing their lives to gun violence on average every day. That is an average of 14 more a day than the previous 6 years.
Yeah, we still have more than 4 months left in this year. All right, Rudabeh, thank you. Another theme park death, this time a 14-year-old girl in Ohio. She drowned at a water park there. News Nation's Aaliyah Williamson from our station WDTN is at the Land of Illusion Adventure Park. It's in Middletown, Ohio. So, Aaliyah, what are authorities saying about what happened?
Nicole, they say that 14-year-old Mykira Jones tragically drowned here Tuesday evening. According to reports, she was playing on a water trampoline without a life vest when she fell into the water. And now that's raising some questions about the safety measures or lack thereof here at Land of Illusion. In fact, the Butler County Sheriff's Office is opening an investigation after they received an overwhelming number of calls and concerns following this accident. Now, the Butler County Sheriff, that's Richard Jones, he says that he's taking these allegations seriously enough to now involve the Attorney General's office. Some of the complaints allege that life vest wearing here is not enforced, that the lifeguards are not certified, and the rescue equipment is not up to par, if there is any at all. The sheriff says these are just complaints. They're actively investigating, but right now there are no charges filed yet, and the water park operators are cooperating. The park opened in 2018, and this is the first death reported here, but the sheriff says he believes some things need to change.
There's a lot going on, but this is going to be an overwhelming investigation, and we feel it needs to be others involved. And we also feel that there should be more regulation on these parks in Ohio, if not the United States.
In a Facebook post statement, Land of Illusion owners said that they were continuing to offer their condolences to the family. And here's what they said. Here's a short quote. "We prioritize guest safety and training for our team and diligently comply with all Ohio regulations governing the activities and offerings available at our Aqua Adventure Park." Again, they are cooperating with the authorities here in Ohio. Back to you, Nicole.
Yeah, our thoughts certainly go out to that family. All right, Aaliyah, thank you. Let's move to Colorado now, where crews are are still searching for 3 people missing after flash floods on Tuesday. More rain expected there through the end of the week. NewsNation's Vicente Arenas from our Denver station KDVR joining us with the latest. Vicente, with more rain on the way, are there more flooding concerns?
Huge concerns, Nicole, because anytime any amount of rain moves through the mountains, it just rolls down the mountain because of all the wildfires that we've had here. So what you see happening are these flash floods. You see these mudslides. We had another one today. Storms predicted in the mountains tonight. All this on top of the devastation that we saw just down the road here. Today we got our first look at an area that was devastated where 5 homes were just washed away by a flash flood. We saw a family that was able to go back in today. The woman was shaking and in tears. Her home was intact, but she knows that her neighbors lost everything they had. And we also learned today, Nicole, very sad news, that the one woman who's dead and the 3 people who are missing are all members of the same family. And here is the one thing that really caught me by surprise is that the sheriff's officers are saying, we don't even know where to search because so much water came through here that the missing people could be anywhere. So the concern tonight continues. There are other people that are being allowed to go back into the area of devastation, just a few at a time. They're allowed to go back in to see if their home is intact. And as I said earlier, there was that one woman. She was hugging someone, just crying because her home was intact, but she was so sad because her neighbors are still lost this evening up here in Larimer County. Nicole?
Yeah, we hate to hear that. Hopefully they will be able to locate those 3 missing people. All right, Vicente, thank you. Well, a Central Alabama City Councilman caught on camera using a racial slur during a council meeting. Janelle Ford is live for us tonight. So, Janelle, people are calling for his resignation.
Yeah, they are, Nicole. Tarrant City is a suburb just north of Birmingham, Alabama. It just elected its first black mayor last year, and it's been thrust into the spotlight after one of its council members used the N-word during a council meeting on Monday. The meetings are all streamed on Facebook. The incident begins with Tarrant County Councilman Tommy Bryant, who is white, being questioned about comments his wife made on Facebook about race. Here's the moment things escalated.
Word.
I mean, I
Hey,
know I'm
do we
black.
have- hey, do we have-
Now you want to address what I have to say.
Do we have a house in here?
Yeah, you. Okay.
Do we? Hey, do we? Would she please stand up?
Y'all were seeing this, right? Camera. All right. That's what Miss Freeman was called.
That's what the mayor called her. What do y'all think about that?
Now you can hear that collective gasp from the people sitting in on that meeting in that video here. And then, of course, you continue to watch the video. You see the woman who is being addressed in that video, the councilwoman. She gets up, she begins crying, she leaves the meeting, and then the meeting continues. Since then, Bryant has been unapologetic about what he said. He's even said that he would run for mayor, and then when questioned about those comments, about that outburst, this is what he had to say.
If you had the opportunity to redo yesterday, would you change anything?
No.
Why is that?
Because I did what needed to be done.
I mean, I know I'm black.
Now, the whole ordeal has prompted calls for Bryant to resign. Earlier today, Black Lives Matter activists were here at City Hall to voice their concerns. They've called Bryant a racist, and they say that he is unfit to serve leadership here. Now, since then, the mayor has come out and said that he did not say that racial slur in a closed meeting. And then, Nicole, also on top of this, the Alabama NAACP as well as the state's Democratic Party have both joined in calls for that council member to resign.
Yeah, Janelle, I am shocked. All right, Janelle Ford live for us tonight. Well, next on Rush Hour, 1 day away from opening ceremonies in Japan, why this year's festivities will be unlike any we've seen before. And could California Governor Gavin Newsom's job be in serious jeopardy? A closer look at the results of an exclusive News Nation poll looking into the upcoming recall election. We already knew opening ceremonies for the 2020 Summer Games would look and feel different, but today, news that ceremonies director has been fired. Now, this stems from a joke about the Holocaust made back in 1998 and deepens the divide of this year's games compared to years past. News Nation's Jack Dole's joining us from Tokyo. So, Jack, what are you hearing there about the opening ceremonies now?
Yeah, it's quite a buildup, right, Nicole? You've just lost the director. They also had to fire the composer recently because of bullying allegations. We do know that the U.S. will have 230 athletes walking into the ceremony, only 230 of the 600-plus athletes that are here. There will be fewer than 1,000 people in the stands. It'll be dignitaries like the First Lady, also some sponsors, although quite a few sponsors have pulled out, including Toyota. They won't go to the ceremonies. Toyota is also pulled out as an advertiser for the Olympics. So there's a lot of pushback in the Olympics in Tokyo right now.
Well, and Jack, you mentioned the First Lady there. As you also said, fewer world dignitaries will be there. Do you know anything about the First Lady's agenda as she's there?
Yes, so she arrived yesterday, Thursday in Tokyo, and she met with the Prime Minister. She's going to meet with the Prime Minister's wife today here in Tokyo. She's going to have a virtual get-together with Team USA, and then she is going to go to the Imperial Palace and meet with the Emperor, and then later tonight in Tokyo, she will be one of those dignitaries at the opening ceremony.
All right, Jack, thank you. We will talk with you again tomorrow. Vice President Kamala Harris hosting DACA recipients at the White House today, nearly a week after a judge ruled that program is illegal. How the Biden administration is working to protect the Dreamers. Plus, what does a town do when the supply of drinking water runs dry? That's exactly the issue facing a small Utah town. News Nation is live on the ground next. Today, Vice President Kamala Harris hosted a group of Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals recipients at the White House. The Biden administration is vowing to protect the DACA program after a federal judge ruled it unconstitutional last week. News Nation's Raquel Martin joining us live from the White House. So, Raquel, what did Vice President Harris say?
Nicole, the vice president met with about a dozen Dreamers here at the White House this afternoon, and at least one of them was directly impacted by this federal court decision. Her application was actually frozen when it came down. Now, the vice president reassured Dreamers that we're here today that the White House is on their side. The Department of Justice has already announced they're challenging that court decision, and the Department of Homeland Security says it's drafting a new rule to try and protect Dreamers. But ultimately, the vice president says it's going to take an act of Congress to try and permanently protect Dreamers.
We recognize you for the Americans that you are, and that we recognize that you deserve all the rights that come with American citizenship. And so we will be tireless in fighting for a pathway to citizenship.
And on Capitol Hill, the push to try and pass a permanent path to citizenship for Dreamers is stalled. While some Republicans say they do support DACA recipients, they say they do not support adding more routes for legalization without first trying to secure the border. Now, Democrats are entertaining one last option that's potentially including a path to citizenship inside of their $3.5 trillion spending plan. But Republicans say not only do they think that's a bad idea, they think it simply won't work. For now in Washington, back to you.
All right, Raquel, thank you. Well, an exclusive News Nation poll shows how exactly California voters feel about Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom. He is facing a recall election, and more than 1,000 voters responded to this poll conducted by Emerson College. And News Nation's Nancy Liu joining us live from Los Angeles. All right, Nancy, what are the results?
Well, Nicole, the results, not good news for Governor Gavin Newsom. With the recall election fast approaching on September 14th, the mail-in ballots are going to be mailed out soon. Our new polling finds that approval and support have slipped for Governor Newsom, who held a news conference just yesterday to address violence and retail crime. But the governor also faces ongoing tests with the ongoing wildfire season due to drought and yet another surge of COVID-19. In our latest News Nation Emerson College poll, voters were asked whether to recall or keep Governor Newsom. 43% want him out, and his support has slipped to 48%. So at this point, the undecideds could make a Newsom recall a reality.
That's not good. You want to be above 50%. He has always trended above 50% in most of the polls. The fact that he's below it now means that people are starting to focus less on the pandemic and more on life after the pandemic.
And in another blow to Newsom, only 42% of voters polled support re-electing him in 2022. 58% say it's time for someone new. Now, should the recall happen, the News Nation poll finds conservative radio host Larry Elder leading all candidates by a 10% margin. The state has certified 46 names to appear on the ballot, and that includes businessman John Cox as well as reality star Caitlyn Jenner. Some interesting weeks ahead here in California, Nicole.
Oh, yeah, 46 names. All right, and we know the last time Californians voted in a recall election all the way back in 2003, so we'll definitely see what happens. Nancy, thank you. Let's still head on rush hour. A crippling car shortage leading to row after row of empty parking spots at dealerships all around the country. The cause of that shortage and how long experts predict it will last. Plus, could two of the biggest college football programs in the country be bolting for a different division? What we know about the effort by Texas and Oklahoma to join the SEC. All right, listen to this. In parts of Utah, drought conditions so bad, water now has to be delivered to a small town. It's east of Salt Lake City. This is a look at just how dry the ground is there. So let's go live to Nick McGurk. He's from our station KTVX. So Nick, local leaders there saying it's really never been this bad.
Never been this bad. We're talking about the worst drought in decades here in Utah. It's about an hour from where I'm standing. I'm in downtown Salt Lake, but we were at Echo, and leaders there say their tanks are out of water. They get their water from nearby streams, and those streams have dried up. I want to give you a little bit of context because 2020 was the driest and hottest year in Utah's history. And then you've got our snowpack. If folks don't know how this all works, we get snow on the mountains, it comes down the mountains, and it goes into our streams and reservoirs. But we had a below average winter last year, and a lot of that ground this spring was so dry that it sucked up a lot of the water. So big picture, 56% capacity for our reservoirs, and those are sort of our hedge against bad water years. That's our safe. So 56% capacity, it's very striking. You drive to the nearest reservoir, and the levels are very low. So in Echo, it's a town of a few dozen people. It's a pretty small town. They've been paying other communities for water. They truck it in, it goes into their water tanks, and right now they're conserving water. Their lawns, a lot of them are dying, and they're certainly taking shorter showers. Just a real lifestyle change there, but it could be the canary in the coal mine. I spoke to the Division of Water Resources, and what they tell me is this could be sort of a warning sign of what could happen if we don't get a lot of snow this winter. There could be some pretty devastating consequences for other communities in Utah. Also worth noting, there are a couple of communities in the same county that have put a moratorium on development over drought concerns. Hennifer and Oakley there in Summit County. So just a lot going on here. Broadly speaking, in Utah, worst drought in decades, and certainly last year, the hottest and driest in our state's history. I'm Nick McGurk reporting live in Salt Lake. Nicole, back to you.
All right, Nick, thanks. All right, so we're talking about a shortage of water. There are never shortage to tell you about tonight, this time at car dealerships. Not enough vehicles as demand just keeps rising for new and even used cars. Let's head out to News Nation correspondent Marky Martin. She is live in Texas. All right, so Marky, is this shortage COVID related?
Yeah, bingo, Nicole. First, take a look at this lot behind me. This is shocking to see. Right now, we're in Plano, Texas. Right now, buyers have their choice of one Chevy Traverse. I'm going to scoot out of the way, but if you take it back to the beginning of the pandemic, people started staying home. Auto companies shut down. That demand for transportation went down at the very onset of COVID. Semiconductor makers pivoted from putting those chips inside cars to the chips in electronics instead. Well, now this demand is coming back. However, the cars are not. So now you have lots not just here in DFW, but lots across the country that are riddled with empty parking spots like this. And did want to say, too, you know, demand right now is greatly outweighing supply. In fact, we sat down with the owner of this car dealership today. Take a listen to what he had to say.
Obviously, inventory is very, very low. I mean, generally we'll have 80-day supply of vehicles. We probably have about maybe a 15-day supply at that. Maybe 10 days. So I've been in the business for over 45 years. And so I've never seen anything like this before.
Yeah, his dealership, by the way, for those who don't live here, one of the biggest in the DFW area. He said he predicts this lasts at least 6 months, if not longer. So now we're looking into 2022. And also, Nicole, today I talked with somebody who's been on the market for about a month looking for a truck. He said at this time he can't even find a dealer to bargain with. Nicole.
Wow, 80-day supply down to 10 or 15. All right, Marky, thank you. Still ahead in your sports nation, a new NFL rule introduced today means your favorite team may have to forfeit games this year, all because of the pandemic. Plus, the celebration half a century in the making, how the world champion Milwaukee Bucks celebrated their first title since all the way back in 1971. Happening now in Sports Nation, a new NFL pandemic rule could force teams to forfeit games if too many players test positive. Let's bring in Chris Tavares from our affiliate KXAN in Austin. All right, Chris, so this could happen if too many unvaccinated players test positive.
Yeah, Nicole, so the NFL is trying to do two things with this memo that it sent out to teams today. One is encourage everyone to get vaccinated, and two, protect its finances. In that memo, it said that if any game cannot be played within the 18-week regular season window, it'll be declared a forfeit, and that is if it is an outbreak among unvaccinated players. That's the key word there. So if it is a forfeit, the team that had the outbreak, they will be credited with a loss while their opponent will get the win, and this is what matters to both teams. Neither team's players will receive a game check, and that'll be big incentive for everyone to make sure that they get the check. And the team that had the outbreak and had to forfeit the game, it'll be responsible to the league for any finances lost league-wide because of a lack of a game. Now, if there is a COVID outbreak among vaccinated players, like we're starting to see with some of these so-called breakthrough cases, the NFL will, quote, attempt to minimize the competitive and economic burden on both participating teams. Now, the league isn't mandating that anyone get the vaccine, but clearly they're trying to send a message here that you should get it, otherwise it could cost you some big bucks.
Oh, yeah, and money does tend to be a pretty good motivator. All right, down to some big news in your area, Chris. Texas and Oklahoma reportedly want into the SEC. Tell us what you know.
Yeah, so they are the two biggest schools, the most prominent schools in the Big 12. The story broke yesterday when A&M was again getting ready to speak at SEC Media Days in Hoover, Alabama. Brent Zwerneman of the Houston Chronicle broke it, said that both teams had been talking to the SEC about joining the league. But in that same article, he said that an announcement could be made within 2 weeks. Now, curiously, neither Texas nor Oklahoma nor the SEC denied any of the reports. They just said that they're not going to talk about speculation. Now, of course, there are some financial hurdles that have to be cleared if this were to actually happen, most notably TV deals. Both Texas and Oklahoma granted their rights to the Big 12 through 2025. The Longhorns also have the Longhorn Network, which was probably the impetus for so much of this conference realignment that happened just 10 years ago. Of course, in-state rival Texas A&M, the only school from Texas in the SEC, not at all happy that their rivals could be joining the league. They were very vocal yesterday about not wanting Texas to join the SEC, but if 11 of the 14 schools in the SEC vote to allow Texas and Oklahoma in, Texas and Oklahoma are going to be in the SEC regardless of what Texas A&M says. Texas A&M and Missouri were both members of the Big 12 up until 2012 when they left for the SEC.
All right, Chris Tavares live for us tonight in Austin. Thank you. All right, the Donlin Report starts in about 10 minutes. Joe is live in the studio for us. All right, Joe, tell us what's coming up.
Hi, Nicole. Tonight on the Donlin Report, masked deja vu. As the Delta variant spreads, there are new calls for mask mandates. They're already in place in L.A. County, but some cities are pushing back. We're going to talk with the mayor of Torrance, California. He supports the idea. Plus, Matt Taibbi joins us to weigh in as well. College athletes getting paid. Alabama's new quarterback cashing in on a 7-figure deal as a sophomore. Talk about beer money. Is the era of the student athlete over? And with more unruly passengers, flight attendants are training to fight back. We'll see you with that and more at the top of the hour, just about 6 minutes from now. Nicole, back to you.
I think I'm stuck on that 7-figure deal, Joe. All right, thank you. Authorities are saying everything is under control after a pipeline explosion in Kansas. Don't go away. We have your top stories from around the nation next. We continue now live from our News Nation headquarters here in Chicago. Here are some other top stories we're watching right now. Smoke from those western wildfires now covering states thousands of miles away. Authorities say there are more than 80 large fires currently active across 13 western states, but smoke and haze covering the skies of cities as far away as Chicago and New York, with officials in states like Indiana, New Jersey, and North Carolina issuing air quality alerts. And as COVID cases surge in parts of the country, the White House increasing funding for testing and vaccinations, including in schools and homeless shelters. Meantime, China not allowing the World Health Organization to move forward with the next phase of its investigation into the origins of COVID-19. Chinese health officials say the WHO's plan does not respect science. U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland in Chicago today to talk about the Justice Department's effort to reduce the drastic rise in gun violence. That plan includes so-called strike forces, which will operate in 5 cities, including New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Washington, D.C., and Chicago. And a natural gas pipeline exploded today in western Kansas. No one's hurt. There's no threat to the public. Northern Natural Gas shut off the line. Took about 30 minutes to put out those flames. And the Milwaukee Bucks paraded through the streets today after securing their first NBA championship in 50 years. The Bucks locked up the series in 6 games with a 105-98 win over the Phoenix Suns earlier this week. So, of course, congrats to the Bucks. That is all for Rush Hour. The Donlin Report is next. Please have a great Thursday night.